Welcome. So in this part of the lesson, we're going to be drawing a semicircle, and here it is. So the first thing that we need to be able to do is to recognize that this rule here gives us a semicircle, and that just comes with practice. I recommend that you watch the previous part of this lesson, so the previous part, if you're struggling to recognize what the rule of a semicircle would look like. But this is what it's going to look like here. Once we've done that, the next thing that we would want to do is to help us visualize it, figure out what part of the circle am I drawing. So am I drawing a semicircle that looks like this with the top part, or am I drawing a semicircle that looks like that, the bottom part of it? Or is it the right part, or is it the left part? How could we figure this out? Well, again, all of this was discussed in our previous video, but we know that when y is the subject, we're dealing with either the top or the bottom. So when y is the subject, we're dealing with either the top or the bottom. And then to figure out whether it's going to be the top or the bottom, what we're going to do is look at the sign in front of the square root. Because it's a negative, we know that we're going to be dealing with the bottom part of a circle. So we can just visualize immediately what we're doing. The next thing that we'd want to do is figure out what the center and radius of this semicircle is going to be. Let's begin by figuring out what the radius is. To do this, all you need to do is square root this number here. The square root of 16 is 4, so that's going to be our radius. To figure out what the center is going to be, what you're going to do is look here, and because it's a -1, that means my center x value will be 1, and then I've got a 3 here, which means it's been translated 3 units up, so that means the center, the y value of it, will be 3. So that means the coordinates of the center will be 1, 3. Now, if you feel like you wouldn't be able to look at this and immediately identify what the center and radius is, there is another way you could do this, and that is to rearrange this to get it into center radius form. And then from that, you can just read off what the center and the radius is. So to do that, it's just simple rearranging. So I'm going to -3 first from both sides to get this. I will then square both sides to get rid of all this. I just want what's underneath the square root here, so I'll square both sides. Whoops, I'm getting rid of that. 16 minus 1 squared. Then I will plus x minus 1 squared over. So I'm going to get y minus 3 squared. Then I'll get this over here. It's equal to 16. And then once you're here, we can now just read off what my center and what my radius is. So we know that this here is the r squared value, so radius is just 4. And then here we've got our x minus 1, so that means the x value of the center will be 1. And then we've got y minus 3, which means the y value of the center will be 3. And just like that. So you don't have to rearrange it, but it can be helpful for some. Okay, the next thing that we want to do here is let's find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So I'm going to find my x-intercept, which occurs when y is equal to 0, and I'll find my y-intercept, which occurs when x is equal to 0. All right, so, am I running out of room? No, hopefully not. So to find the x-intercept, I'm going to let that be equal to 0. I'm going to get 3 minus the square root of 16 minus x minus 1 squared. Remember, I'm trying to solve it for x, so I'm going to -3 from both sides. I then am going to square both sides, so I'm just left with what's underneath my square root here. The square root of, I'm going to square both sides just to be left with what's underneath my square root here. So that means -3 squared will be 9. Remember, a negative and a negative make a positive. 16 minus x minus 1 squared. I will then -16 from both sides, and that will leave me with -7 is equal to minus x minus 1 squared. Then I will divide both sides by -1. A negative and a negative make a positive. Then I will square root both sides to get rid of the square here. So that's going to be plus or minus the square root of 7 is equal to x minus 1. Then I will plus 1 to both sides. So 1 plus the square root of 7 is equal to x. So a little bit of working there for sure, but we eventually get there, which is all that matters. Then we're going to do the same thing for my y-intercept. So I've got y is equal to 3, this, 16, then into the x spot goes a 0. Perfect, let's zoom in here. So I'm going to get y is equal to 3 minus the square root of 16 minus, now -1 squared is 1, so I'm just going to get y is equal to 3 minus the square root of 15. Perfect. Let's also write down that we know the center is 1, 3, and we know that the radius is 4. And there is all our useful information that we need to now sketch this thing. So let's just go through it all. We've got my x-intercept, we've got my y-intercept, we've got my center, and we've got my radius. So if we now try to sketch this, let's see how we go. I'm first going to put down where my center is. So here's 1, here's 3, it's going to be about there. The next thing I would want to do, just to make sure that I get my scaling right, is I've got a radius of 4. So that means it's going 4 this way. So 1 plus 4 will be 5 here, won't it? The coordinates of this point would be 3, sorry, not 3, 5, because it's my x-coordinate, 3. And then I have to go 4 this way. Now I'm starting at 1, I'm going 4 this way. That's going to take me to negative 3. So it's going to be negative 3, 3. I'm also going 4 down. So I'm starting at 3 and I'm going 4 down. That's going to take me to negative 1. Now, I actually don't like drawing too many points that I have to draw through because I'm terrible at drawing. So let's just rub that out for now. Let's draw it first. I can do better. Okay, that's okay. It's not horrendous. Could be better. Now I'm just going to come back in here and I'm going to say that this is negative 1. Do you see? That's a very useful skill in methods. Don't draw a point, then draw through it. Draw it, then draw the point in. Don't worry if it's a little bit off. I mean, that's tolerable. Does that really look like negative 1? I suppose. So 1, negative 1. What's really important is you're labeling everything correctly. That's what you're going to be marked right or wrong about. So that's what you're really going to take note of. So we've got negative 3, 3. We've got 5, 3. We've got 1, negative 1. Now we have to label the x-intercepts. So this right here will be 1 minus the square root of 7. 1 minus the square root of 7, 0. And this one over here will be, oh, sorry, not minus, plus. Because it's obviously more positive value, so you want 1 plus the square root of 7, because it's the bigger number. This one will be minus. 1 minus the square root of 7, 0. Once we've done that, we want to label the y-intercept, which will be 0, 3, minus the square root of 15. So that is this right here. So we've got our y-intercept labeled. So 0, 3 minus the square root of 15. We have our x-intercept labeled. 1 minus the square root of 7 on 0. We have this one labeled 1 plus the square root of 7 on 0. Labeling the actual intercepts is the most important thing. In your test, it will specify what it wants labeled, but I can almost guarantee you they always want the actual intercepts labeled. And that's it. That's how you draw your semicircle. Hopefully this made sense. This is the last part of this video. So now you're going to go on with the exercise 4D. Hopefully you found this useful. Make sure you're reaching out if you need extra help. And I will see you later.